On this episode of Motorsport recently, we look back at the Paris EPrix, the Azerbaijan Grand Prix, and the Geico 500 at Talladega. And by some miracle, after thinking we were having technical difficulties, but apparently there was actually just a button that said start streaming, we are live! Half an hour. We're only half an hour late, and well, we should keep in mind that it wouldn't be an episode of Motorsport recently without a few technical difficulties. So joining me on the mic is Caitlin Penny commentary and the wonderful Chris Whitfield. Hello, guys.
Hello.
And on the dot of just after 35 minutes past 5 p.m.,
which is
we are finally underway.
34 minutes after we were meant to start, but the important thing is we have actually started. Now, before we get into the news today, well, I may as well go over the last few weeks. So the reason we haven't been on in the last few weeks is I was in Spain doing holiday things, like go-karting and going out in a Ferrari Portofino. And of course, there was a heap of racing that happened over the last few weeks. So there was some IndyCar. There was IndyCar in Alabama and also at Long Beach. And I'm really disappointed that we didn't get to cover the Alabama race because I didn't get to make any family-friendly jokes. If you sort of get my drift there. There was also some NASCAR stuff which happened. There was the Chinese Grand Prix. And also, Super Formula got underway. We won't be covering the first round, but we'll probably cover the second round when that eventually does happen. The first round of the Super GT Championship happened as well, but there was some rights issues with that, so pretty much no one got to see that. So that's my quick recap of the last few weeks. I'm not sure if I've missed anything.
IMSA?
Oh yes, IMSA happened as well at Long Beach. So that was another thing. And I think that's covered everything from the last few weeks then. So we didn't need to stream at all because we've just covered stream Motorsport recently at all over the last few weeks because we've just covered it then. Now, before we get into the news today, of course, this week was 25 years since the 1994 San Marino Grand Prix. Of course, has been 25 years since the passing of Ayrton Senna and Roland Ratzenberger. And they're still missed to this day. So, it's impromptu, I've just realized, but I guess this episode of Motorsport recently, it goes out to them. Does anyone have anything else to say on that?
Well, I tweeted something on Twitter the other day about that, which was that although I was never around to see Senna race, although I could never witness him in action, I'm enjoying learning about him and celebrating his legacy. And I don't really know who doesn't know about Senna within the motorsport community. Just an absolute legend of the sport. And although he did some things that I wasn't such a fan of, you know, it was an absolute tragedy. On top of that, Roland Ratzenberger, it's important not to forget him with what happened to Senna. Ratzenberger, very promising driver, very quick in all sorts of cars, not just single-seaters, but also prototypes and also touring cars, surprisingly. Not many people know that. But whatever the case, the tragedy that befell him as well should also be remembered. 25 years ago.
Yes.
And what people often don't know about Ratzenberger, and I put this on my Instagram, was that he actually has won victory in the British Touring Car Championship, driving a BMW in Class B at Thruxton in 1988. And Demon Tweaks Motorsport actually messaged me after that and said he was a fantastic driver and sorely missed. He was the only person to beat the dominant Frank Sittner in Class B that year in 1988.
Yeah. Anyway, so yes, that has been 25 years since since Ayrton Senna and Roland Ratzenberger passed, as I said earlier, this episode goes out to them. And we'll go over some people who have checked in. So, of course, the wonderful Chris Whitfield has checked in with his eyes emoji. Caitlin, I know you're checking in on the stream as well,
yeah,
and
sorry,
of course
I will leave
we
a quick
have
comment.
we have Charlotte D. Forsini in the chat as well, but expect to see more of her over the coming weeks. Gee, I wonder why.
Hey,
Shall we get into the news?
Oh yes, let's do it. Let's do it.
Right. Okay, so we start with Formula One. So the most recent Grand Prix took us to Baku in Azerbaijan, which I don't think too many people had actually heard of until the Grand Prix happened there a couple of years ago. Now that has come to mind. For the fourth round of the FIA Formula One World Championship, Mercedes had a 1-2 finish in all 3 races this season. So Mercedes would have been hoping to repeat the same success, but Formula One fans would have been wanting something a little bit more interesting. Valtteri Bottas started on the pole for the race, followed by Lewis Hamilton and Sebastian Vettel. Ferrari hopeful Charles Leclerc started in 8th, having crashed out in Q2. So the stage was set as awesome as a race can be if the 2 Mercedes are starting on the front row, but I digress. The race got underway, and almost immediately the 2 Mercedes rocketed away from the field. Charles Leclerc would make a comeback and eventually make his way into the top positions, as he was the only driver to start on the medium tyres, which meant he could go longer into the race on the medium tyres, as all the other drivers started on the softs. The benefit of crashing out in Q2. This meant that he could eventually get into the lead of the race, but not before a very peculiar incident involving Daniel Ricciardo and Daniel Kvyat happened, in which both of them ran wide, and Daniel Ricciardo actually reversed by mistake into Kvyat. Now, fine here, I can't remember who this was for, but I've been seeing an ad that Daniel Ricciardo was in over the week where it was probably an ad for car sales, but he was showing everybody how to reverse park, and in this ad, if you've seen it on social media, if you will recall, he badly reverse parks into the car behind him, so I'm not sure if that was foreshadowing or anything.
You know what it actually reminds me of?
Yes.
It reminds me actually of the Metro commercial with Murray Walker, Nigel Mansell, and Eric Idle.
Really?
And what happened in that?
Where basically, like, Eric Idle's directing Nigel Mansell's Metro out of the dealer. He says, "Go on, Nige, out you come, safe as houses," and then they basically touch fenders with Murray's car. Well, I don't believe it.
See, but the thing,
I've
the point with
gotta see
this, though,
oh my goodness.
the point with this, though, is that stuff like this is supposed to happen on, well, it's not supposed to happen, but it happens on the road, not on a racetrack. Anyway,
it could happen in a car park.
It's not on racetracks. Meanwhile, Charles Leclerc led the race for a period. However, he had to make a pit stop and lost the lead to Valtteri Bottas and Lewis Hamilton, and he would come out of the pits in 5th place. Devastatingly, at around this time, Pierre Gasly had to stop with engine troubles. It would be another disappointing race for Pierre Gasly. It's been a horrible, horrible season. Well, yes, it has been a horrible, horrible season for Pierre Gasly. I thought I was over-exaggerating there for a second, but I'm not. It has been a terrible race for Pierre Gasly, a terrible season for Pierre Gasly. So, at the end of the race, Charles Leclerc would make one more pit stop to go for fastest lap, which pretty much showed that he conceded defeat at that point. So he didn't lose any places because he was like 29 seconds ahead of the car behind him. But that would pretty much end any chance of him winning. The race ended and Valtteri Bottas took victory with Lewis Hamilton in 2nd, meaning another victory for the Silver Arrows. Yay.
And
It's becoming like what they do on... what they do on midweek motorsports, where they're saying whoever's won in the World Rally Championship, and they say Sebastian Ogier.
I can tell you something more about that because it is the first time, and I have to credit the amazing virtual statman Sean Kelly for this one. This is the first time since 1952 where one constructor has finished 1-2 in the first 4 races of the season. What an incredible stat! First time since Ferrari did it in 1952.
How exciting!
Didn't Williams do that in 1992?
But they're not doing it now.
Actually. I can research exactly why not, but no, this is the first time since 52. However, back in 52, when it happened, actually one of the drivers involved in those 1-2s was a privateer driving a Ferrari, meaning this is technically the first time in Formula 1 history where the same team has finished 1-2 in all of the first 4 races, unless it happened in 1950. I don't think it did. The Alfa Romeos were very, very close. I don't think they quite managed it. Sorry, go ahead.
So, Williams wouldn't be doing, well, as we mentioned, so you thought Williams did it, but they certainly won't be doing it now. And in terms of Mercedes, it is getting a little bit boring now, I must say. So I think we should go over the championship standings now. Valtteri Bottas is leading the championship by just a single point over Lewis Hamilton with 87 and 86 points, respectively. Sebastian Vettel is in third with only 52 points. Oh dear.
Oh dear.
Oh dear.
It looks like Mercedes are running away with it for the 6th year in a row.
Well, I tell you what, a lot of people have been saying that Ferrari do have the quicker car, they've just been throwing it away. I disagree. I think the Mercedes is quite obviously a quicker car, especially in qualifying, but also they just have the edge in the race. The difference has been their strategy. Their strategy has been phenomenal, and as a team, they've been unstoppable. Maybe the car, yeah, the car is fantastic. Maybe it's not a dominant car in terms of performance compared to the Ferrari. But you see, Ferrari is just such a poor team as a whole these days, so badly in need of oiling, if that makes sense. That, yeah, Mercedes are pretty much unstoppable, and I think that was pretty much inevitable from the start. So I think we're just going to have to ride out this series and enjoy the races which are close, and look forward to 2020, really.
I'm also of the belief that it's far too early in the season to be giving the drivers and constructors trophies to Mercedes just yet.
Yeah.
Remember, few years, Ferrari was the dominant team at the beginning of the season. Then everything went to Helena Bottom Carter, and basically, Mercedes had the advantage in the latter half of the season. So I'm not really sure if it's going to be. I think it's going to be history repeating itself in reverse. It's far too early to count them now.
I actually think that's why we pretty much can guarantee that they're going to win the championship now, because Lewis Hamilton in particular, but especially but Mercedes as a whole, they do tend to go better in the second half of the series than in the first half. We've always seen this. We've seen this in every year of the hybrid era so far. Sorry, Linkin Park slipping in there. Whatever the case. So I wouldn't be surprised if Mercedes are even more dominant in the second half of the year than in the first half of the year. And I'm going to make a bold prediction that after Singapore, every race will be won by Mercedes.
That is a bold prediction, and for the sake of entertainment, I very much hope that you're incorrect.
Me too.
But now
I haven't seen a team this dominant at the start of the season since Ferrari back in the Schumacher era.
Oh,
how ironic!
Absolutely,
No, I
absolutely. Just to end our point earlier about what you were saying with Williams. Williams were on for actually 5-1-2s in a row. However, on their fourth one in Spain, Patrese went for a flip over the back of Berger's Ferrari. So, yeah,
right. So anyway,
Wasn't that Portugal?
Spain. Sorry.
Charlotte D14 is also mentioning Williams, and she says, "What is wrong with Williams?" And yes, that is a very good question. Well, it's not so much a question because she said that they have the best engine supply, but the car is overall bad. Yes, the car is terrible. And she's also said that Bottas will be the 2019 Formula One World Champion. That's an interesting prediction, I will say. Bottas certainly could be the champion, I think, but I think.
And then you basically just watch the endorsements for porridge come in.
Oh yes, Uncle Toby's sponsorship when. Motorsport recently. Please do be in touch. I would be happy to say Motorsport recently presented by Uncle Toby's.
Shall we move on?
Well, just before we move on, just one more thing on Williams. Actually, I think it was a bit much for give Robert Kubica a penalty, despite the fact he was already out of the race.
Did they?
They actually did. They gave him a penalty for speeding in the pit lane.
I'm surprised he can go that fast.
I didn't even notice. Hold on, he didn't even retire. What are you talking about?
Oh well, he may as well have retired.
He may as well have retired. Never mind.
He may as well have retired. Charlotte also predicting that Esteban Ocon will replace Grosjean. That's an interesting one, I will say.
Grosjean probably. Yeah, probably not Grosjean. I'd expect him to replace probably Kubica for next season, but not confirmed.
Right. Okay, I think that's enough on Formula One. Should we move on to NASCAR now? Caitlin, would you mind please changing our slide?
Indeed. Let's have a look at this sparkly NASCAR poster we have, made by the wonderful Finnick Arrow.
Yes, go. Link to his page in the description would be below. Go check him out. Chris, take it away, please.
Okie dokie. The NASCAR Monster Energy Cup Series had its first of its twice daily dates with Talladega Superspeedway. This race is historic as it's marked the first time since 1987 that NASCAR has not used a restrictor plate to lower the horsepower on the engines, instead opting for a tapered spacer. Aerodynamically speaking, the spoilers were raised up to 8 inches per the new aero package with a 70-degree angle, and the aero ducts, which is in the form of a blade on the lip of the rear spoiler designed to remove excess drag from the car, enabling cars to drag to each other better. I wrote this sentence. Austin Dillon and Eric Almirola started on the front row for the Geico 500. The race had its usual close Talladega racing, which is a change from the procession that I had before. However, on the 12th lap, Bubba Wallace misjudged a bump draft and spun in front of the pack behind, collecting Clint Bowyer, Kevin Harvick, Denny Hamlin, and Michael McDowell, among others. The win in Stage 1 was captured by Ty Dillon, who won his second stage of the season, his first coming at Bristol, and Chase Elliott was victorious in Stage 2. The pack racing was very tight throughout the race, making it feel as lively as a race from the 2001 season, when they had a similar aero package to the one they used this weekend. With 5 laps to go, however, everything began to change. Chris Buescher and Eric Almirola made contact sending Buescher's car hard into the outside wall on the backstretch, collecting Almirola, Matt DiBenedetto, Martin Truex Jr., and rookie Justin Haley. They restarted with 2 laps to go, and Chase Elliott snookered Joey Logano with help from teammate Alex Bowman. Then, on the white flag lap, Ricky Stenhouse Jr. went head-on into the wall, but the caution was not thrown. It then came out for the final time on the backstretch when Kyle Larson turned William Byron coming off of turn 2. The crash collected David Reagan and Jeffrey Earnhardt, the latter following Larson into the inside wall. Larson's spinning car caught the edge of the drainage ditch and blew over and tumbled 5 times before coming to a stop on his wheels. When the dust settled, Chase Elliott led at the moment of caution and scored a very popular victory at Talladega. The top 5 look like this. Chase Elliott wins over Alex Bowman, rookie Ryan Preece, Joey Logano, and Daniel Hemrick in the first victory for 2019 for the Chevrolet Camaro ZL1, or ZL1 if you're in America. I have to say, I actually quite enjoyed the race at Talladega. I genuinely did.
That was very good. But is that... And it's kind of show... So I didn't actually realize that they weren't using the restrictor plate for this race. And it kind of has shown up the restrictor plates, the restrictor plate racing, because Talladega was brilliant because it didn't have it.
Yeah, because, like I said, the last time they ran without the plates was at Talladega was in 1987, and we all remember that because Bobby Allison flew up and hit the catch fence, going into just past the flag stand. He was okay, but they decided then and there to slow the cars down for 88.
So, in terms of, I'm assuming that the public of motorsport thought that this race was very good. So, because that was so good, do you think we'll see less restrictor plate racing because of it?
Well, the plates only, the restrictor plates were only at the two races and the 2 races at Talladega.
Well, which
so
was
basically
better, let's be honest. Let's be honest here.
This
which
one.
Do you think is better?
They got this package right.
Yes, they
for
do.
the speedways, especially. I like the fact that they brought back the blades on the rear spoiler, because they had this rule before in 2001, except with one small difference. They also ran with a blade running the width of the roof between the two blades above the driver's door.
Okay.
A lot of aerodynamic things go into NASCAR. It's like Formula One, according to Jeff Gordon.
Is it? Anyway, so yes, that was a very good race, and I think everyone loves the Chase Elliott one. Is that his second career win?
It's his 4th, because he won Watkins Glen, Dover, Kansas or Chicago, and Talladega this year. And one thing I will say, and I noticed this during the coverage, I don't want to always say this, but Fox, come on.
Have they ruined the coverage again?
When the crash occurred with Kyle Larson, it took 15 minutes. It took less than 15 minutes to update the fans on the condition of Jeffrey Earnhardt and Kyle Larson.
Ooh.
This is a big thing. Like, the fans, like, basically, the TV networks have an obligation to, like, they have an obligation to make the coverage watchable. They don't do that. They coast. That's why they get the early season races. They basically turn them into a show. And I swear, when the TV contract comes up, watch this space, because I think I'm gonna make a bold prediction, and I'm gonna say NBC is gonna have the full season in Cup, Xfinity, and the trucks.
Sounds to me like you'd be pretty pleased with that.
Absolutely, and like
NBC do a very good job.
they do. And you know why that is? Have you watched the early season Fox races versus the NBC races?
I haven't actually watched the full races this year.
Watch them side by side, and you'll notice a difference.
Right.
In how watch one of the Fox races this year versus the way that the NBC races from last year are run. And you'll see a difference in not only camera work or like commentary, but also professionalism. Fox always tends to make a show out of it, out of their coverage. Like, when really the on-track product should be the show, theoretically. But, like, and NBC, they are professional. They know what they're doing. They've won Emmy Awards for this. Fox is just coasting because they have a long-term contract. But, like, they're just coasting at this point.
Anyway,
it kind of reminds me. Before we move on, it kind of reminds me. I've heard of this kind of thing being used as like dramatic license in the past, which is really, really wrong. And I remember someone saying, Bernie Ecclestone, that was it. When Alonso had his accident in 2016, he said that the F1 coverage should play up to big accidents. You know, they should make it look bigger than it actually is by bringing in all sorts of ambulances and screens around the driver, and then only later they announce how he is. That's so wrong. That's
so wrong on so many levels.
It should not be that way. It really should. And, like, honestly, it should not be that way.
Absolutely, but
it really
that's
shouldn't.
Obvious. That's so obvious.
Like I said, anyone that's watching this, watch an NBC race, like watch a race like on NBC, and watch a race this season on Fox, and you'll see a visual difference in how the on-track product is presented. And that's my challenge for everyone watching, is watch them side by side. It doesn't have to be the full race, but watch highlights of them side by side, and you'll see a difference.
Anyway, so that was a very good race. Very popular win for Chase Elliott. Good win for Hendricks.
And also the siren at the Dawsonville firehouse got to be blared in Dawsonville, Georgia. So that was always good.
Hooray!
And we always like when the sirens go off in Dawsonville.
Right. So very good. Shall we move on to one of our favourite segments? One hand for this, because it's time for
Ooh, is it time? Okay, hold on. Sorry, I wasn't ready for that. Is it time for miscellaneous stories and points that we missed and therefore recovering 90M thing?
Not quite. That's later.
Okay, sorry. What's it time for?
It's
The other
time for
one.
Nando Watch.
Nando Watch!
Insert jingle here. It's time for Nando Watch.
He's got that thirst with a triple crown. St. John's may burst. Can't keep him down. This is Nando Watch.
There we go. All sorted.
Hooray! Right, we do have some interesting Fernando Alonso news, despite the other than the abysmal results at the IndyCar testing this week. Might talk about in a sec, actually. Fernando Alonso has announced that he'll be leaving the WEC and Toyota Gazoo Racing at the end of 2018 and 2019. The super season, of course. So after Le Mans, and he will be replaced by Brendan Hartley.
I will say that is actually.
Go ahead, Chris.
Go on ahead, Caitlin.
Okay, let's face it, we saw that, he wasn't going to stay at Toyota. All he was there for was to win Le Mans. He's won Le Mans. To be honest, he probably wishes that he didn't have to do the rest of this series. But yeah, absolutely. He doesn't have to care about WEC anymore. He's going to be off after this Le Mans 24-hour this year. Next year, again, I still maintain he's probably going to be full-time IndyCar.
Yes, I'd like to see him in IndyCar.
And I'm genuinely glad that that Brendan Hartley is getting a second call.
Yes, I'm so happy about that. Of course, he career as of late. So he was, I think last year he was going to go to Chip Ganassi Racing for IndyCar. Then he got the Toro Rosso offer, which didn't go very well for him because he had a horrible season at Toro Rosso, and now he's at SMP Racing. But SMP Racing aren't going to win an LMP1 because, Toyota, and now he's going to be at Toyota, and that's really exciting, actually, and I'm really happy for him.
Now, also lost in all of this, I looked at the rest of the driver lineup for that especially for the number 7 car. Somehow, Jose Maria Lopez gets to keep his seat.
Well, why would they fire him?
I'm questioning that.
Well, it's not like they fired Fernando Alonso, so they wouldn't fire Jose Maria Lopez.
Well, the thing is, I'm sorry, he hasn't really done anything to impress me in WEC. He's really not that. He's not that good of a driver, honestly. He was slow, and also too crash-worthy for my taste. In the Toyota.
Do we suggest that we replace him with Pastor Maldonado?
No. Well, they had a perfectly good driver in Ant Davidson, but he was pushed out for Lopez.
And not that I don't think that was the best move, to be honest.
No.
So now that we've covered that, so Fernando Alonso, important thing to note there, he will not be in the WEC, will most likely go to IndyCar for a full-time drive, and he's been replaced by Brendan Hartley. Hooray! Now, not so good for Fernando Alonso this week was the IndyCar testing, and of course he participated in the rookie test at Indianapolis Motor Speedway, was 8 miles an hour off the pace.
Due to, unfortunately, a mechanical issue, which prevented him from actually completing more laps. Now, I'm sorry to say this, and I was saying to Caitlin earlier this week, he's in genuine danger of being bumped
Yes, he
from the
is.
500. He's in genuine danger.
I really don't think so. I think that I can't see Alonso being bumped. I'm not one of those people who's just like, yeah, Fernando, best driver ever to exist, my favorite IndyCar driver. No, I just can't see Alonso being bumped. It's not something that my brain can comprehend. And I also think, it's Alonso, it's McLaren. They are going to find some speed. I don't know if it's going to be enough speed to be like properly competitive. But yeah, absolutely, they'll be in the show. And if they're not, then consider me silly. Yeah.
But the main issue, so presumably what they have to do is they have to iron out their mechanical issues. So then they need to do that before Indianapolis. But who's to say that the mechanical issues won't arise again on bump day? And if that
Plus,
happens,
they have to find speed.
I am speed.
Now, who are
yeah.
your guys' picks for the 3 drivers that will... okay, who is your pick for the pole?
Ooh.
I don't think you can ever predict these things, to be honest.
Okay, well, me and Chris were speaking the other day about the drivers that we considered we predicted to get bumped. Mine were Pippa Mann, James Davison, and Ben Hanley. As for the pole position, I'm going to say I think I'm probably going to take a little bit of a risk and go Alexander Rossi.
You think Alexander Rossi will have on the pole?
Fair enough, fair enough.
Go
ahead, Jack.
I'll take a shot in the dark and say Colton Herta will qualify
Oh my
on the pole.
goodness! That'd be amazing.
Not bad. As far as I know, the last rookie to start on the pole was... I think it was Tony Stewart in 1996.
Really? Oh my goodness.
Although he was handed the pole because of Scott Brayton's fatal accident, but still.
Still, you can never... Oh yeah, I know that story. Sorry. But yeah.
For me, I'm gonna say this. Based on the test, I'm gonna say Takuma Sato.
Oh.
That was my second pick, actually.
Now, who do you think are gonna be the 3 that are bumped out?
Well, I don't think you can ever predict these things. To be perfectly honest, it's just too unpredictable because if you go off the results from testing, it'd be Fernando Alonso, but you're not going to pick Fernando Alonso to be bumped necessarily. So I won't actually make a prediction of who I think's getting bumped because it's nearly impossible to predict.
Here are my 3. And I'll explain why. I am going with Santino Ferrucci, Zach Veach, and Fernando Alonso.
Right.
Now the reason I say those 3.
You don't
There's
like Santino Ferrucci.
It has nothing to do with that, believe it or not. It has nothing to do with the fact that
hates Santino Ferrucci in every single respect.
Yes, well, who does like him? But Ferrucci doesn't know how to set up a car. Like, he really doesn't. And he's going to struggle to find speed. Plus, you only get 1 attempt to get into the field. Like, to get into the show. Ferrucci is way too... Ferrucci's a ticking time bomb out there. When it comes to what... Like, he's never driven on an oval. Ever. And he's just going to struggle to find speed, I think.
Yeah, I thought that was interesting. So Indianapolis is actually the first oval race of the season.
It is, yes. It was last year it was Phoenix was the first one. Now, the reason for Veach was...
She's still there.
Have we lost Chris? Oh no.
We might have just lost Chris.
I think we should lost Chris. Oh golly.
Predictions.
Okay. Well, okay.
Well, it wouldn't be an episode of one of these without technical difficulty like
Absolutely.
that. So
Let's move on to you quickly, Jack. Who were your predictions for getting bumped?
getting bumped. I think it's impossible to actually predict, so I don't think I should make a prediction.
It is impossible to predict,
So,
but that's why we do it. Oh, Chris.
Oh, he's back. He's back.
Chris,
yes.
we just lost
we
you for
lost-
like the last 2 minutes.
Oh no!
Oh no, sorry.
How did that happen?
I've got no idea. Sorry, Chris. What were you saying?
Yeah, I think it's gonna...
Chris.
We've just lost him again. Right. That's not... Well...
This is professional. Have you lost me again?
We can
you're
hear
still
you, but we
here.
did lose you again.
You said Santina Ferrucci was a ticking time bomb.
Yeah, Ferrucci's a ticking time bomb. Zach Veach is not a good qualifier. So I think he's going to be bumped too. And I'm sorry to say, Fernando Alonso will be the third.
Well, we don't know how bad those technical problems were, but I remember they said that they got the car fixed. They got his McLaren fixed. So if they got it fixed, surely that doesn't explain for him being 8 miles an hour off the pace.
The thing is,
Yeah.
during the test, the Carlin teams, all 3 of the 4 Carlin cars, which includes Alonso, were actually near the bottom of the time charts. Like, for instance, Max Chilton, was bumped, but was not in. Charlie Kimball, I think, was near the bottom of the list, and Alonso was the slowest.
Right, I think that does it for Nando Watch this week. I think we'll be moving on to Formula E in a second, but Charlotte Di Forcini, she wants us to mention that she is actually joining the Motorsport Recently team as our Blancpain GT correspondent.
So welcome to the show.
Welcome to the
Hooray!
show, Charlotte. I'm sure you're going to enjoy next week's broadcast and anything else you do with us. Yes.
Welcome to the show of several technical difficulties.
Oh golly, you're gonna have to get so used to technical issues.
We're professionals.
They have happened. I think they have happened in all but one episode so far. So all right. So Caitlin, would you mind changing the slide for one last time because
Yes,
we are moving
okay.
on?
Take one last good look at our beautiful NASCAR poster. Now have a look at our beautiful Formula E poster. Ta-da!
Hooray! All right. So and before I begin, thank you to Freya Edwards for writing yet another wonderful Formula E article. Let's begin then. Exciting, chaotic, intense. Gripping are some of the words that could be used to describe the Paris EPrix. Other words include Wreckfest. Again. It all...
Formula E and a Wreckfest? No.
Oh, surely not. It all started with Oliver Rowland on the pole, and the first corner was actually clean for the which seems like a first for this season.
For once.
However, and that was probably due to the fact the race started under safety car for some reason. Anyway, however, it didn't stay that way for long as pole sitter Rowland locked up and ended up in the wall. So we couldn't stay clean for particularly long then. We didn't have to wait long for the next bit of gripping action on track as Massa was passed by Lotterer, and it was a great move by the Belgian driver that was simply unstoppable. And no matter which driver who was in front of Andre Lotterer, they were all becoming the next victim of the Belgian DS Techeetah driver. Yes. So very good from Andre Lotterer. He actually qualified very far down, so that was quite impressive that he was able to make a comeback like that. I don't remember where he qualified. If anyone can remember, please remind me.
I'm right on it now.
Get back to that in a second. Shortly after that, it became apparent that Sebastian Buemi had issues that caused him to retire from the race. Yet another terrible race for Nissan. Actually, did Sebastian Buemi retire?
Buemi finished 15th actually, so didn't have a good race, but didn't quite retire. Also,
It was a lap down, I remember.
Yes. Also, Lotterer started from 6th on the grid and ended 2nd, so didn't exactly start that far back, but it was still a good race. Yeah.
Well, in a Formula E race, to make up 5 positions on tracks that are as tight as they are, then that is quite an achievement. So anyway, yes, yet another terrible race for Nissan. The drama on track was mostly caused by the weather. The rain and hail, which seemingly appeared from nowhere. I actually remember I looked down at my phone for a second, then looked up and it was raining. Easily all of the drivers' worst enemy, and the teams especially losing driver after driver throughout the race. Overtakes were arguably easier for some drivers as their opponents were all sliding into the wall and continuing this season's trend of Wreckfest after Wreckfest. EPrix was Robin Frins, who we actually haven't mentioned yet because he actually had a clean race and it was a fair win and well deserved because he didn't make any mistakes, he didn't crash, he didn't have any technical problems. Andre Lotterer came in a respectable 2nd place, as previously mentioned, going up from 6th place, and Daniel App's not far behind in 3rd. So pretty much everybody who had a relatively quiet race had a good race. We are now 8 races down and have 5 to go, and it's Robin Frins who is leading the championship with 1 point separating him and Andre Lotterer, who is on 80 compared to Frins' 81. 3rd in the championship is Antonio Felix da Costa, who has some making up to do. Well, as much making up to do as really required in Formula E, as he's only 19 points behind the top 2 drivers. Which really isn't that much because this series is, well, crashing out and whatnot, so drivers having terrible races is completely unpredictable in every single way. So, most of the crashes this week was caused by the rain, but can we still say that we are getting sick of the Wreckfests?
Formula E mod for Wreckfest when?
I would definitely support that.
Absolutely. Luckily, no red flag this time. I was actually quite surprised by that. What's it?
Yes.
Yes, and actually, that's quite significant, seeing as the previous 4 races had red flags, despite the fact the first 40 only had 1. It's just, wow, like, what the heck. But yeah, still, although there was no red flag, it was still an absolute, I know we keep using the word Wreckfest. I'm going to use a slightly different word to keep it interesting.
We're not going to have to put anything
mayhem
in this word
pit
are we?
thing, and yeah, whatever the case, great victory from Robin Frins to keep it clean. It's actually really difficult to lead a race in the wet because you reach every corner first and you have to be the pioneer and explore what parts of the track are dry and what parts. That's what caught Oliver Rowland out, for example. But yeah, absolutely, it was a good win from Frins and a good race. And
unfortunately, the next race is Monaco.
And the next race is Monaco.
which
Oh,
is notorious,
Jesus.
which is notorious for drivers crashing in no matter what series seems to race there. So, and of course, you remember in season 1 that race was the definition of Wreckfest. So fun times ahead in Formula E. I think it's time to move on. So thank you for another Formula E article. That goes out to Freya Edwards. So thank you. I think we should appoint Freya as our official Formula E correspondent because she does a very good job.
Thank you, Freya.
Our second
Freya
segment,
with another top-notch
yes.
report.
So it's time for our second segment of the day. So our second segment that has a jingle.
Noted.
Segment that we do at the end of the show every single week. It is now time, of course, for
Miscellaneous stories and points that we missed and therefore recovering ITM. Boom. There we go, that was perfectly timed. I'm actually really happy about that one. First successful jingle. Can we get a shout for that? Yeah!
Yay!
Anyway, right, so we get into the miscellaneous stories and points that we missed and therefore covering now, TM Bing. I'll try and sound like I'm not having a stroke. Now, the first story of this segment is relating to motorsport.tv, and they, of course, will be covering the 2019 Super GT season live and free, which I originally thought was bad news, and then I saw it was live and free, and then I thought, oh, that's good news. Bad news.
They have a lot of work to do.
Has Super GT happened or not?
It has.
Has it happened again?
They have a lot of work to do on their coverage.
Have they covered a race yet?
Yes.
So is that the first one that they covered?
Last night at Fuji. Yeah.
So, wait, didn't we? Where was the first race? Was it Okayama that was first?
It was Okayama, but no.
No one streamed that, and they asked. So Fuji hasn't happened yet.
No, Fuji happened last night.
Oh, it happened last night. Well, okay, I'll have to go back and watch that. Good news is all the stuff's on demand. However,
and I watched
the Let's Go Racing coverage, which was formerly Super GT, because usually
which was formerly Nismo, of course.
Usually, what would happen with Super GT is they wouldn't actually know it was on until they got a notification from Nismo TV. That's slightly annoying that I won't get that anymore. I'm not sure.
And the commentary team, they have a lot of work to do.
Who was on the commentary team lineup?
It was a couple of brothers, I think.
Who?
I tried to commentate with my brother once. It was not a good experience. Sorry.
But well, see, Caitlin, you would be better than those guys. Well,
I don't know how bad they were, but by the sounds of it, anyone would have.
I didn't see it, but I will happily send in my CV if they're looking for replacements. I don't know.
I'll have a watch of it later, and I'll be and I'll see if they are good. Anyway, should we move on to our second story? Sebastian Bourdais will actually have another race at Ford Chip Ganassi Racing at Mid-Ohio in the IMSA WeatherTech Sports Car Championship due to Joey Hand having a virus. Is this starting to wonder if the virus that I had is spreading around the world and seems to have affected Joey Hand? Because unfortunately for travellers, I have been well, actually no, that wouldn't have been a problem done actually, because I have been on 4 planes. So if you have travelled between Qatar and Spain in the last few weeks, on Qatar Airways, I do apologise. You may have a stomach bug coming your way. So that's a little unfortunate for Joey Hand.
And also, Marshall Pruitt actually joked about it, saying that Claire is not going to be happy. Sebastian Bourdais' wife, because, well, because it was an open weekend between Long Beach and between the Indy test and the Indy Grand Prix.
Yeah.
And apparently Marshall Pruitt says that Claire knows that Mrs. Bourdais knows karate. And is probably not going to be pleased with the fact that Sebastian Bourdais is racing this weekend at Mid-Ohio.
Yeah. All right. That's not.
But it was all in fun though.
All right. Moving on to something we don't usually talk about. We're moving on to NASCAR. To a story for the NASCAR Euro Series, Within Euro Series. And this, the circuit Tormo will host the NASCAR Euro Series at least until 2024. So obviously that's been the first race of the season for quite a few seasons in the NASCAR Within Euro Series, and the first couple of races actually happened there recently, and they were rather entertaining. Yes, so they will be racing there until 2024. Hooray!
And also, quick plug for the Project Cars league of the same name. Your one.
Oh, the Project Cars League. Yeah. So if you're friends with me online, then you'll know what I'm talking about. Because I'm trying to start a Euro Series league on Project Cars too. Moving on to some Formula E news.
And I'll take this one. One of the frontrunners for the Paris mayorship, Benjamin Griveaux, is threatening to cancel the EPrix due to the fact that it brings nothing to the city and takes up too much space, makes too much noise, and other various things. If he's elected, he will cancel the race as early as 2020. And honestly, I hate the fact that politicians feel that the EPrix is an election issue.
Now, I'm putting on my fur hat because the fur hat is now equipped because I should explain the other stuff that was referred to refers to all the other stuff that comes along, refers to all the other problems that having a street race causes. To also mention that Benjamin has said that the Formula E race is too noisy, which race fans will know isn't necessarily true. And my fur hat is because the other party that he's going against, I can't remember what this party's name was, but they said that they won't cancel the EPrix, so you should elect them, and they are a socialist party, so for racing, please elect your socialist party, and you'll still have a Paris EPrix.
Now, here's the thing, like, Montreal, I cite Montreal as an example because it was, believe it or not, an issue during that election.
Yes, it was.
And Denis Coderre, who actually was the mayor for Montreal at the time, the man that was responsible for bringing the EPrix to Montreal, lost the election because of that. And also the fact that he basically paid for 75% of the tickets and gave them to his friends. But, yeah, basically, I hate it when Formula E is causing these political... I understand it, but I don't like the fact that, like, Formula E is causing all these political wranglings, like, and becoming election issues when really it shouldn't be. It should focus on issues that matter to Parisians, like homelessness, like
fact that-
public transport and all that. Like the main issues for the city,
And
not
the church that's just burnt down.
not a race.
Now listen, they do cover all of that stuff as well, or at least most of that stuff, I hope. This is just
Well-
another thing that's being covered, and to be honest, I see their point as well. I can understand why a city wouldn't need an EPrix, and to be honest, I myself, if I was running a city, I wouldn't just race, or I wouldn't just run to sign Formula E just because it's racing. I would have a, but you know, I must say the thing I found funny about that was the fact he said it was too noisy. I think he means more like the crowd and setting it up and all of that, rather than the actual racing itself.
He actually said the like I think he actually referred to the wailing noise that the cars made. I had to check that up on you, but he said like the noises that the cars make echo off the walls in the city. So
they kind of do. Like,
That's a bit of a stretch, though.
it's a bit of a stretch. They kind of do. I mean, it is still relatively loud, and I don't want to get shouted out, or like, sorry, like, okay, basically, like, I can see what he means, but the trouble is, like, you can't hear them from, say, 500 meters away, so, I don't know, it's...
Like if you were at the Champs-Elysees when this happened, you wouldn't know that the race was happening. They're so quiet during that weekend.
Anyway,
Unless they
so
were
I think
at the Champs-Elysees, which would render my argument moot.
Well, the thing is, it doesn't really affect Formula E much either, because the thing with Formula E, maybe apart from the financial side, is they can go to anywhere. There are so many cities in the world, and there are so many cities that would take them. They can go anywhere. They don't need Paris.
So anyway, here's my message to Parisians. And this is, of course, with me wearing my my fur hat. If you would still like an EPrix in 2020, vote for the socialists. And I think that's enough for Formula E now. We should move on to some news from Le Mans, actually. And Chris, would you like to tell us about this?
Yes. Patrick Long has been confirmed for the number 99 Dempsey Proton Porsche in the GTE Am class, which of course means everyone's favorite duo, Tracy Krohn and Nick Janssen, will be running in that Porsche as well. Now, they did finish on the podium before with Patrick Long, with Peterson White Lightning Racing in, I believe, 2006. But the problem is, it's Tracy Krohn, it's Le Mans. I think we all know what's going to happen. Patrick Long's going to get a one-lap lead, and then all of a sudden, Tracy Krohn's going to get in and be fished out of the gravel trap faster than you can say Quidditch.
Oh my goodness. So yes, that's not particularly good. Now, of course, along with Formula 1, we actually had Formula 2 from Azerbaijan, and having watched the highlights, I can say it was quite interesting. Caitlin, would you like to tell us about that?
Yes, Formula 2 from Azerbaijan, where Formula 1 lacked the sort of chaotic mayhem that we've seen from previous years in Azerbaijan. Formula 2 absolutely did not lack that. There was... it very much looked like a Formula E race at times. Giotta ran into the back of a car, went into the barriers. There was a big pile up at turn 2 in race 2. Yeah, it was pretty chaotic. Mick Schumacher went for a big spin in race one, and this all started. Started as well before the races even began. Right, I think actually even before George Russell's drain cover incident, Sean Gelael had an incident where his engine cut out in practice, and then as he tried to get the car going again, he managed to take down two marshals, and it was a very scary incident. It looked very much like when Raikkonen took down his pit mechanic. Luckily, they were both okay, and there were no serious injuries. But yeah, it could have been a lot worse. Then throughout the
And
races,
also,
sorry.
and also, at Toronto last year in the IndyCar race, when Rene Binder had his car in reverse instead of first gear, when the marshal was trying to recover him, and basically backed into the marshal.
Ooh, yeah, that's bad. Anyway,
sounds-
And who was
the
the-
race. The race was a mix of random dive bombs and people going straight on down escape roads. I wasn't able to watch the races. I've only seen the highlights, so I can't really talk much about the actual.
That's another thing, actually. Formula One are actually posting the F2 highlights on YouTube, which
Very
is
true.
fantastic.
Well done, Formula One. But yeah, sorry. So I can't talk about the actual race in terms of the strategy or in terms of the racing. I can't remember much that happened. But whatever the case, it was Jack Aitken who won race one from Nick de Vries, actually getting a podium, and I hope he keeps it up, seeing as he was my pre-season prediction for the championship. And then Jordan King, third place. Jordan King, of course, previous Manor reserve driver. Then we also in race 2 had Nicholas Latifi winning, the first double winner of the series, therefore sealing his championship lead, with Juan Manuel Correa second and Jack Aitken in third position. So after round 2 of the championship, it's Latifi leading from Aitken, Giotto, De Vries, and Sete Camara, the top 5.
Hooray!
Wasn't there the new Indian driver that wasn't there something with him?
There are no Indian drivers.
Or what was the new guy with the very long name?
Do you mean Mahavir Raghunathan?
Yes, Raghunathan.
Where is he from?
He is Indian, weirdly. Yeah, sorry, he is Indian. It's just that the site I'm looking at has glitched and has given him a Dutch flag. But anyway,
Dual citizen, I guess.
Well,
no,
what-
he's not a dual citizen. It's just randomly given him a Dutch flag. But
What's nationality between friends?
of course.
Yes.
Yeah, whatever the case. I don't think I saw anything interesting from him. He finished 11th and 13th. Sorry, did you hear anything else about him?
I heard he got a penalty for something, but
Oh, potentially, but I wouldn't know about that. Sorry.
I'm not exactly sure what.
I should also mention that that our Formula E writer Freya Edwards has just checked in. She's in the chat now.
Hey there, Freya.
Hooray! I think that actually rounds off all the stories from this week. Now I should mention we were going to cover Rallycross this week, but our correspondent's having some issues, so he'll make his debut at a later date. Thank you very much for tuning in. I've got my usual people to thank, so thank you for the wonderful Chris Whitfield and Caitlin Penny commentary for putting up with me and my technical difficulties and my inability to find a start button. Thank you very much to @SpinnickArrow on Instagram for making all the wonderful graphics that you've seen on screen today. Thank you to Freya Edwards for writing the Formula E article, doing a wonderful job as usual. Thank you to Charlotte Di Forsini for checking in today. She wasn't on the show this week, but she'll be making her debut as Blancpain GT correspondent next week on the next episode of the show. I think that's just about everyone, and thank you to everyone else who hasn't to everyone else who isn't watching live but is watching afterwards. Oh, and Wadey
speaking
has
of
just
Wadey.
checked in. Rallycross correspondent, he has just checked in. Hello, Wadey. Sorry, but you have joined at the tail end of the show. So
I mean, thanks for joining us, but yeah, you
He'll,
might wanna watch this back.
he'll be joining us next week. So thank you to everyone else and thank you to everyone involved. Thank you for joining this episode of Motorsport Recently. I've been Jack McKenzie. I've been joined by Caitlin Penny and Chris Whitfield. Like, subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Goodbye.
See you later.
Ta-ta.